Every story has a moment that changes everything. And today, we're about to discover it. A hand slams a termination letter onto a desk so hard the paper jumps. Sophia's face freezes, hurt, stunned, and unable to understand how saving a life somehow cost her everything. Her supervisor folds his arms coldly as the words "you're fired" echo through the room like a punishment she never deserved. A Marine collapses inside a federal lobby. His body hits the marble floor. A streak of red trails from his vest. People gasp, stumbling backward, unsure of what to do. A voice, calm but unmistakably powerful, fills the silence. "Sophia, this is the President of the United States." Phones drop. The world seems to stop. Even breathing feels louder. A sleek black SUV door opens. Raymond steps out with purpose. Sharp suit, steady eyes, a presence that feels like authority wrapped in quiet confidence. His gaze meets Sophia's for the first time, and something shifts, not romance. Not yet. Something deeper, awareness. A rising sense of danger flickers across the screen, a shadow near a doorway, a blurred figure watching Sophia from a distance, a classified file stamped restricted sliding across a table, Raymond's jaw tightening as he studies it. Sophia looking over her shoulder, unaware of the storm gathering around her. The pace slows for a breath. Her life is about to change. Her choices will matter more than she knows. And this, right here, is the moment everything begins. Welcome to Mr. Obama Stories, where stories don't just get told, they come alive. This is the home of powerful American stories. Stories of struggle, success, mystery, history, and the unforgettable moments that shaped people, communities, and dreams. From inspiring life journeys to shocking real events, every story here is crafted to make you think, feel, and see the world differently. At Mr. Obama Stories, we believe every voice matters, and every story carries a lesson. Whether it's motivation, history, real-life drama, or untold experiences, you'll always leave with something unforgettable. So sit back, relax, and let the story begin. Because here, every story has a meaning, and every meaning has a story. Subscribe and become part of the journey. Before the story unfolds, let me ask you something real. Have you ever done the right thing and somehow ended up suffering for it? Have you ever stepped in to help someone, only to face consequences you never expected? Have you ever been pushed down right when you were trying your hardest to stay afloat? If you have, then you'll understand Sophia immediately, because in just 24 hours, her entire life flips upside down. She saves a Marine who can barely stand, yet she's the one punished. She steps up when everyone else hesitates, yet she's accused of crossing lines she never meant to cross. She acts with heart, and still ends up alone, jobless, and questioning if kindness is worth it. But the world around her is shifting in ways she can't see. Somewhere out there, people she's never met are paying attention. Someone is watching replay after replay of the moment she saved that Marine, studying her courage, her instincts, her strength. Someone requests her entire file without hesitation. A man named Raymond, whose path is about to cross hers in a way she will never forget. And while she sits at home believing everything has fallen apart, a call is already on its way. A call that doesn't just acknowledge what she did, a call that will rewrite her future. So let me ask you one more set of questions, the kind that keeps viewers locked in till the very end. What if losing her job was the breakthrough she never saw coming? What if the Marine she rescued wasn't just another person passing through the lobby that morning? What if her act of compassion uncovered something buried beneath layers of silence, something that now places her in the center of a much larger story? And what if the man sent to step into her life is someone her heart isn't ready for, but fate refuses to ignore? Because here's where everything hits at once. Sophia stands in that office, holding her termination letter with trembling hands, wondering how helping someone could destroy her career. The humiliation burns. The confusion cuts. The weight of unfairness sits heavy on her chest, and a voice says, 24 hours later, her phone rings. A pause, a shift in the air. Please hold for the President of the United States. Her world doesn't just change, it flips upside down, and that's why you need to watch this story to the very end. But before we dive into everything that happened, do me a quick favor. Please like this video so YouTube shows this story to more people. Comment where you're watching from. It truly helps the channel grow. And if you're new here, welcome to Mr. Obama Stories. Subscribe so you never miss stories that move, inspire, and stay with you long after they end. Now, let's begin. Washington, D.C. woke up with the kind of sky that couldn't decide what mood it was in. Somewhere between gray and stubborn, it hung low over the city like it had a quiet warning to give. The streets shimmered with leftover dew, buses wheezed through their morning routes, and government workers moved with the automatic determination of people who had already accepted that the day might be heavier than they wished. Sophia stepped off the metro with her bag slung over her shoulder, her steps quick and her expression set in that familiar blend of irritation and purpose. She loved this city, but it didn't always love her back. Today, her body felt like it knew trouble was waiting even before she reached the building. Her latte was lukewarm. That alone was a bad sign. "Story of my life," she muttered, sipping it anyway as she walked toward the Jefferson Federal Complex. The building towered above her, glass, metal, and a personality as warm as an automated voicemail. She stared up at it with the kind of look a woman gives a place that has drained her energy one paper form at a time. Still, she pushed forward. Frustrated? Yes. Tired? Always. Resilient? Absolutely. She greeted the security guard with a small wave, shifting her bag on her shoulder as she stepped through the rotating doors. The lobby was its usual mix of polished floors, faint echoes, and people pretending they weren't 2 minutes away from giving up. Sophia took another sip of her disappointing latte, preparing mentally for another day of chasing missing signatures and correcting mistakes made by people paid more than her. She had already told herself 3 times that she wouldn't let this place get under her skin today. Then everything changed. A heavy thud echoed from the entrance behind her. A few people gasped. Sophia's head snapped around. The man in camouflage fatigues, a Marine, stood there unsteadily like the ground was shifting beneath him. Tall, pale, focused on something she couldn't see. His steps were uneven, and his hand trembled as if he were trying to hold on to strength he no longer had. Sophia's brain went blank for the briefest second, then instinct took over. "Hey, sir," she called out, but the Marine didn't respond. Instead, his knee buckled, and his body lurched forward. His momentum carried him straight toward the hard marble floor. Sophia dropped her latte without thinking. The cup exploded at her feet, coffee splashing across the tiles as she sprinted toward him. She reached him just in time, catching his arm and lowering him before his head met the ground. Her voice rose, sharp with urgency. "Sir, stay with me. Hey!" His breathing was uneven, his face pale. He tried to speak, but only a faint whisper escaped. Don't call anyone. I just need to get upstairs." "No, you need to stay alive," she snapped. "Focus on breathing." She eased him onto his back and pulled off her cardigan, folding it into a cushion and slipping it behind his head. People began forming a loose circle around them, phones out, eyes wide, waiting for someone else to make a choice. "Can someone get security?" she shouted, waving sharply. The Marine winced, trying to push himself up. "Ma'am, please. Don't, sir." "Hush," she said firmly. "You're not climbing stairs when you can barely stay conscious." A few nervous chuckles rippled from the onlookers, but Sophia was too focused to care. She guided his hand away from his vest as he shifted, and that's when she saw it, a thin line of red. Her heart dropped. This wasn't simple fatigue. This wasn't a headache or skipped breakfast. This was an injury. "Okay, nope, absolutely not," she murmured under her breath. "You're not bleeding in federal property without medical help." She grabbed her phone, fingers shaking just slightly, hovering over the keypad. Protocol said she needed clearance. Protocol said she shouldn't intervene. Protocol said wait. Humanity said otherwise. Her thumb hit 911. Sirens arrived faster than she expected. Paramedics stormed through the doors, pushed through the crowd, and knelt beside her. She moved aside just enough for them to work but stayed close, answering every question clearly. As they lifted the Marine onto a stretcher, his hand reached out shakily and grabbed her wrist. You saved me." She swallowed hard. "Just focus on breathing. You can thank me later." He managed the faintest smile before they wheeled him away. The crowd dispersed, the tension thinned, but something settled heavy in her chest, something she couldn't quite name. All she had done was help, but the look on a few employees' faces suggested her day was about to take a direction she didn't expect, and she had no idea just how right she was. Sophia barely had time to gather her breath after the paramedics rolled the stretcher away, when she heard heels striking the tile behind her, sharp, irritated, and unmistakably directed at her. "Ms. Sophia. Office. Now." The tone wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of someone who had already decided they were displeased. Sophia closed her eyes for half a second, then exhaled slowly, bracing herself. She knew that voice. It belonged to a supervisor who treated regulations like scripture and compassion like an inconvenience. She picked up her abandoned bag, stepped over the remains of her spilled latte, and followed him through the hallway. The walk felt longer than usual. Every footstep echoed with the memory of the Marine gripping her wrist, whispering those two quiet words that still lingered in her chest. "You saved me." She repeated that sentence in her mind like a shield, hoping it would soften whatever trouble she was walking into. The supervisor's office was small, sterile, and always smelled faintly of stale coffee. The blinds were pulled halfway closed, letting in enough light to make the space look tense. He sat behind his desk, fingers folded, expression carved into disappointment, as if he had practiced it in the mirror. "Close the door," he instructed. Sophia did. Then she sat slowly, choosing calm even though her pulse hadn't settled since the lobby incident. He cleared his throat. "Miss Sophia, I need to address what occurred in the lobby." She leaned forward. "Sir, the man was collapsing. I couldn't just—" He raised a hand sharply. "Please do not interrupt." Sophia gritted her teeth but held her tongue. He continued, voice clipped. "You violated federal protocol today." Her eyebrows shot up. "I saved someone, a Marine. I didn't violate—" He cut her off again. "You contacted external emergency services without authorization." Sophia blinked, stunned. "Sir, he was bleeding. Should I have asked him to fill out a permission form before calling 911? His jaw tightened. "This is not a joke." "I'm not joking," she replied, her tone steady but edged with disbelief. "He was losing consciousness. Am I supposed to let someone die on a government floor because you want to follow a rule that ignores basic humanity?" He leaned back, exhaling like her logic offended him. "Your job is to follow procedure. You acted outside of it." Sophia stared at him, heat building behind her eyes, anger, not tears. "If that's how this place works, then maybe the problem isn't me." His brows narrowed. "Are you refusing to acknowledge fault?" "I'm acknowledging that I used common sense," she shot back. "Which seems rare around here." The supervisor clasped his hands, as if settling into a final judgment he had been waiting to deliver. "Ms. Sophia, your actions compromised a sensitive operation." Her body went still. "Operation? Sir, all I saw was a man who needed help, and that," he replied sharply, "is precisely why this decision is necessary. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately." The words hit her like a blunt force. She stared at the page, then at him, waiting, hoping for a sign that this was some kind of warped test. But his expression didn't shift. The room suddenly felt too small. "You're firing me," she whispered, "for saving someone's life. For violating protocol," he corrected. Sophia felt something rise in her chest, anger mixed with disbelief. "Sir, let me ask you something. If that Marine died in the lobby, what protocol would we quote then?" "Sorry for your loss, but at least we followed the rules." His nostrils flared. "This behavior confirms my decision." She stood slowly, pushing the termination paper back toward him. "You know what? I hope one day you need help, and the person standing next to you hesitates because they're scared of breaking your precious protocol." He looked scandalized, but Sophia was done. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. "Please collect your things, immediately," he said stiffly. She paused, glanced back, and said with absolute clarity, "I'll collect my dignity too." Then she walked out. Outside, the building felt colder than it had that morning. People moved through the lobby with the same routine energy as always, yet Sophia felt exposed, as if the walls themselves had witnessed her fall. She forced her feet to move toward her desk. A few coworkers peeked from their cubicles, whispering in low tones, unsure if they should make eye contact. One woman looked like she wanted to ask what happened, but didn't dare. Sophia packed her belongings into a cardboard box. A framed quote her grandmother gave her, a pen she stole from a training seminar, a plant she had managed not to kill for 2 years, and a mug that said Mondays are personal attacks. One by one, the small pieces of her daily life disappeared into the box. When she pushed through the revolving doors with her belongings, the sky finally decided to let out rain. Not heavy, not dramatic, just a steady drizzle that soaked into her clothes as if the day wanted to underline her humiliation. Sophia sighed and whispered, "Lord, I know you're testing me, but please remember, I'm not your strongest soldier." A passerby snorted with laughter, but Sophia barely heard it. She stepped onto the sidewalk, her shoes sinking into a puddle with a soft splash that somehow made everything feel worse. She started walking, box in hand, head lowered against the rain. She didn't see the security camera above the entrance turned toward her. She didn't see the footage being uploaded to a restricted system. She didn't see the alerts sent to a higher-level office across the city. But somewhere, someone did, and that person wasn't ignoring her. Not anymore. Across Washington, D.C., in a building far quieter and more controlled than the Jefferson Federal Complex, a man named Raymond sat behind a wide, polished desk, studying a monitor with the kind of focus that suggested nothing escaped him. His office wasn't decorated with personal items, no family photo, no framed quotes, no clutter. Everything was arranged with intention, clean, precise, efficient. But the emptiness didn't feel cold. It felt deliberate, as if he had long ago decided that attachments didn't belong in this room. A soft alert pinged on his screen, drawing his attention to a newly uploaded piece of footage labeled Priority Review. He tapped the file, and the screen shifted to the lobby of Sophia's building. He watched the Marine walk through the doors with uneven steps. Raymond's eyes narrowed slightly, not in suspicion of the Marine, but in recognition. He knew that man, knew the mission he had been assigned, knew the stakes tied to his survival, and the moment he saw the Marine collapse, Raymond sat up straighter. But then something else captured his attention. Sophia. She appeared in the frame with urgency and purpose, dropping her drink and sprinting toward the fallen Marine. There was no hesitation, no fear, no second-guessing. She moved with instinct, fast, precise, and deeply human. Raymond watched her lower the Marine gently to the floor, cushioning his head, calling out for help with controlled intensity. Her voice was firm but calm. Her hands were steady. She didn't panic. She didn't freeze. She didn't wait for someone else to step in. Most civilians hesitated in moments like this. Sophia didn't. He replayed the clip. Then again. With each viewing, his expression shifted, not dramatically but enough that someone who truly knew him would have noticed the tightening around his jaw, the thoughtful narrowing of his eyes, the faint but undeniable admiration growing there. He leaned forward, elbows resting on the desk, attention fixed completely on the woman in the footage. Her reactions weren't typical. They weren't accidental. They revealed a person who made choices anchored in conviction and instinct. Raymond respected both. He continued watching as she noticed the faint streak of red, the way her face changed, alert, controlled, told him everything he needed to know. She understood the seriousness instantly. She adjusted her actions without panic. She called emergency services despite protocol. She stayed by the Marine's side until help arrived. When the moment ended and the paramedics rolled the Marine away, he clicked through the next segment of footage, the supervisor summoning her. Raymond watched her follow him into the office, shoulders squared but visibly bracing herself. A different kind of tension filled Raymond's expression. He knew her termination was coming even before he saw the footage. He could practically predict the conversation. The people in that building had a reputation for valuing paperwork over judgment. But watching her reaction, the disbelief, the hurt, the quiet frustration, stirred something in him. She didn't yell. She didn't crumble. She didn't beg. She stood her ground even though her world tilted beneath her feet. Some people broke under that kind of pressure. Sophia didn't. Raymond leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. He wasn't a man who formed opinions quickly. His job required careful evaluation, measured thinking, and an ability to separate emotion from analysis. But this was different. He clicked to another angle of footage, Sophia leaving the building with a cardboard box in her arms. The rain had started by then, soft but steady, soaking into her hair and clothes. She moved with quiet determination, even though the weight of the moment was written clearly on her face. She looked like someone who had been pushed down, but not defeated. Raymond studied that image longer than he meant to. Her kindness had nearly cost her livelihood. Her courage had placed her unknowingly at the edge of something far bigger than she realized. Her name was now tied to a situation that required caution, intelligence, and discretion. And yet, she had walked into all of it without knowing a single detail. That alone made her stand out. Raymond pressed a button on his desk. A soft chime responded. "Yes, sir," his assistant's voice answered through the intercom. "Pull everything we have on a woman named Sophia," he said, his tone steady but carrying a sense of purpose that wasn't there a few minutes earlier. "Full file, right away." Raymond ended the call and kept watching the footage. He didn't smile, that wasn't his nature, but something shifted in his expression, a quiet recognition. Something about Sophia's presence lingered with him, like a thread he couldn't ignore. He replayed the moment where she reached for the Marine's wrist, the way she said, "You can thank me later." Her voice carried a blend of humor and strength that didn't match the chaos unfolding around her. Most people acted with fear. Some acted with detachment. That mattered, and it made him curious in a way he hadn't felt in years. The phone on his desk buzzed again. "Sir, her file is ready," his assistant announced. "Send it in." Moments later, a digital folder opened on his screen, clean, organized, complete. He skimmed the first few pages, absorbing details silently. Nothing alarming, nothing concerning, just a woman who seemed to live quietly, work hard, and mind her business. Until today. Raymond tapped his finger on the desk once, thinking. Sophia didn't know what she had stepped into. She didn't know the Marine was tied to a situation that demanded secrecy. She didn't know her intervention had disrupted a chain of events that could have ended much worse. But she would know soon. Raymond closed the file, stood, and reached for his jacket. His movements were deliberate, controlled, almost ceremonial. This wasn't just an assignment anymore. This was a choice, a decision, a beginning. As he left his office, he gave one final instruction to his assistant. "I'm going to need travel clearance. I'm heading out." "Where to, sir?" Raymond paused only long enough to adjust his jacket sleeve. To find her, morning didn't feel like morning. Sophia sat at her small kitchen table, wrapped in a fluffy robe that had become her emotional support blanket overnight. The light creeping through her blinds wasn't warm or gentle. It felt like the sun was peeking in to check whether she had survived yesterday. Her tea sat untouched. Her thoughts wouldn't settle. Her body felt heavy in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. The firing replayed in her mind no matter how many times she tried to shut it down. The supervisor's voice. The paper sliding across the desk. The humiliating walk through the lobby with a cardboard box in her arms. The drizzle that clung to her like disappointment. She sank deeper into her chair and whispered to herself, "Lord, yesterday didn't have to go that hard." Her phone buzzed on the table. She flinched, half expecting it to be someone from her old job demanding she return the stapler she accidentally kept. Instead, it was a text from her cousin. "Game night tonight? We bought wings." On a normal day, wings would have revived her spirit, but today she typed back, "Let you know." She placed the phone face down, wanting to avoid the world for a few more minutes. Her mind drifted, not toward her firing surprisingly, but to the Marine. His pale face, his trembling voice, the way he clutched her wrist before they rolled him away. There was something about that moment that stayed with her. Something that made everything else feel strangely small. She drew in a deep breath and muttered, "I swear, if I end up on some viral news clip with my hair looking like this, I'm suing somebody." As if responding to her complaint, a soft knock echoed through her apartment door. She froze. Nobody knocked on her door in the morning. The mailman didn't knock. Her neighbors didn't knock. Her family definitely didn't knock this early unless they were dropping off food. Another knock. Soft, firm, intentional. Sophia shuffled toward the door, robe trailing behind her like a tired cape. She peeked through the peephole. Nothing. Just the quiet hallway. She cracked the door open cautiously. A small envelope lay on the floor. No return address. No markings. Just one word written across the front in neat handwriting. Sophia. Her stomach dipped. "Okay. I watch too much true crime for this," she whispered. Still, she bent down, picked it up, and opened it carefully. Inside was a single slip of paper. 3 words, no signature. "Answer your phone." Sophia stared at it, blinking. Answer whose phone? My phone? Jesus' phone? Which phone? And then her phone rang. Not just any ringtone. The special ringtone she set for unknown callers so she could mentally prepare herself before answering. The screen flashed. Unknown caller. Sophia backed up a step. No, we don't answer mysterious calls in robes. That's how people get recruited for secret missions in movies. But the envelope in her hand said otherwise. She inhaled deeply, squared her shoulders, and whispered, "If this is how I go out, at least I washed my dishes." She answered. "Hello?" There was a pause on the other end, a heavy pause, the kind that makes your spine straighten on its own. Then a calm voice said, "Please hold for the President of the United States." Sophia's knees nearly buckled. "What? Hold on, the who? Which president? Our president? The White House president?" she stammered, pacing in a small circle. A soft click followed. Room. Then a voice she recognized instantly from speeches and televised addresses filled her living. "Sophia, this is the president. I've been informed of your actions yesterday, and I want to thank you personally." Sophia clapped a hand over her mouth. "Sir, Are you sure you have the right Sophia? Because I know at least 4. But the president continued, steady and sincere. A Marine is alive because of you, and I believe you were treated unjustly. Her breath hitched. He wasn't lecturing her. He wasn't questioning her. He wasn't dismissing what she did. He was thanking her. Sophia slowly sank onto her couch, gripping the phone. Sir, I don't even know what to say except, wow, I'd like to meet you, the president said. Today, Sophia nearly choked on air. Today, as in, today, like now? Sir, I'm in a robe. A small chuckle came through the line. Not mocking, warm. A car will arrive for you in 30 minutes. The line clicked, call ended. Sophia stared at her phone, eyes wide, heart racing, mind spiraling. Then she whispered, oh, this is happening. This is really happening. And I'm not even wearing pants. While Sophia stood in her living room gripping her phone in shock, the opposite side of the city moved with a different kind of urgency, quiet, deliberate, controlled. Raymond stood in his office, staring at the finalized report on his screen. It included the footage he had reviewed, a timeline of the Marines' mission activity, and an internal note summarizing Sophia's termination. None of it surprised him. What did surprise him was the lingering thought he couldn't shake, how quickly she had acted, how steady her hands had been, how instinctively she had taken control of a chaotic moment. He'd worked with people who froze under pressure. He'd watched highly trained personnel hesitate. But Sophia, with no clearance, no training, and no preparation, had done the one thing that mattered most. She responded. Raymond closed the file and let out a slow breath that softened the tight line in his jaw. His mind circled back to the Marines' collapse, an event that should never have happened outside controlled space. He replayed the details he had memorized. The Marine was en route for an internal briefing. He should not have been in distress. He should not have been alone. And he definitely should not have been bleeding. Something had gone wrong, something serious, and Sophia had stepped into the middle of it without realizing it. Raymond straightened his tie and reached for his jacket. His assistant poked her head in through the slightly open door. Sir, the president has been briefed. He has already made contact. Raymond didn't react outwardly, but internally there was a shift, a small confirmation that the situation was escalating the way he predicted. How did she respond? He asked. She answered the call. That's all I know. Raymond nodded once. Good. His assistant hesitated. She was accustomed to his calm demeanor, but she sensed something more deliberate in his tone today. Sir, if I may, why the personal interest? She's civilian. Raymond paused only long enough to choose his words carefully. Because she made a choice yesterday that most people wouldn't. She prioritized a life over a rulebook, and that choice made her visible to the wrong people. And the right ones, his assistant added. Raymond stepped out into the hallway. The floors in this building didn't echo. It was designed that way. Sound dampened for privacy, movement masked for discretion. But today his footsteps felt louder to him, as if each one carried intention. His assistant followed. Should I schedule transport for you? No, I'll handle it. She blinked, surprised. You're going personally? Yes. There were agents who could deliver messages, analysts who could gather intel, drivers who could escort civilians. But Raymond chose to go himself, because Sophia wasn't simply a witness. She wasn't simply the woman who made a split-second call. She was now part of an unfolding chain of events, one he needed to understand from the source. Raymond exited the building and walked toward the private garage. The air outside was cool enough to make his breath visible for a moment. He unlocked a black sedan, slid into the driver's seat, and reviewed the address on his phone. Sophia's home. His fingers paused for a moment above the steering wheel. He wasn't nervous. He didn't get nervous. But he was aware that this wasn't a routine interaction. This was personal. Not romantically, not emotionally, not yet, but personally in a way that made his senses sharper. Sophia had acted with instinct he respected, and instinct mattered to him. It was the difference between people who survived the unexpected and those who didn't. That mirrored the focused expression on his face. As he pulled out of the garage, the city rushed by in muted tones. He drove with a calm precision. He thought of Sophia losing her job. He thought of the humiliation she endured. He thought of the envelope she had just received, the one he had arranged to ensure she answered her phone. He didn't enjoy disrupting civilians' mornings, but timing mattered. The president's call wasn't something she could miss. Raymond switched lanes smoothly, approaching the residential district listed in her file. He had read everything about her background, employment history, address, emergency contacts. Nothing concerning, nothing complicated. She lived simply, quietly, predictably. Until yesterday. His mind moved between two converging truths. One, the president wanted to meet her. That alone meant her choice to intervene had reached the highest office. Two, someone else out there had already begun paying attention to her actions. Not everyone would view her involvement kindly. He tightened his grip around the steering wheel. He wasn't going to let anything happen to her. Not because he owed her anything, not because he was emotionally attached, but because justice mattered, and she had been punished for doing something right. And in his world, people who made choices like that deserved someone in their corner, even if they didn't know it yet. As he neared her street, he slowed slightly, checking the surroundings. His training made him aware of sounds others ignored. The hum of an engine 2 houses down, the rhythm of footsteps on the sidewalk, the shift of a curtain from a neighbor's window. Everything seemed normal. He pulled into her complex and parked where he could see her door. Through a narrow gap in the curtains of her apartment, he saw movement, Sophia pacing, moving her hands dramatically. She appeared to be talking to herself. A faint smile touched the corner of his mouth. Everyone processed stress differently. This was her way. Raymond stepped out of the car and adjusted his jacket again, mentally preparing for the conversation to come. He had handled high-pressure negotiations, tactical briefings, emergency extractions, but walking towards Sophia carried a different kind of weight, not heavy, just meaningful, because this wasn't a mission, it was a turning point, for her, for him, for everything that was coming. He walked toward her door with steady steps, knowing the moment she opened it, her world would expand in ways she didn't yet understand. Two forces were moving toward her at the same time. The president, ready to change her life. Raymond, ready to protect it. And whether she knew it or not, both paths were already connected to her future. Sophia's apartment looked like a clothing tornado had spun through it, and decided not to clean up after itself. She darted from her bedroom to her living room and back again, arms full of outfits that suddenly all seemed wrong. Her robe dragged behind her like a defeated flag as she held up a black blouse to the mirror. No, too serious. I look like I'm going to argue with Congress, she muttered. She tossed it onto the bed and grabbed another, a navy dress. Too formal. They'll think I'm trying too hard. She threw it aside. Another blouse, too bright. Another dress, too plain. Another top, too unemployed. Sophia dropped everything and pressed both hands against her cheeks. Girl, calm down. You're meeting the president. Not auditioning for a reality show. Her reflection didn't help. She stared back at herself with wide eyes, hair slightly messy from pulling shirts on and off, and an expression that screamed, I am not emotionally prepared for this. She walked back into her closet like she was negotiating with destiny. Okay, something clean, something respectable, something that doesn't scream, I cried last night. Finally, she pulled out a soft, fitted blouse and a pair of tailored slacks she usually saved for important meetings. She laid them on the bed, stepped back, and nodded. Yes, that's adulting. That's meeting the president energy. She changed quickly, smoothing the blouse and adjusting the waistband. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from disbelief. Yesterday she had walked out of her workplace carrying a cardboard box. Today she was preparing to go to the White House. Life had flipped so fast she could barely keep up. She moved to her vanity and started on her hair. Please cooperate today, she begged quietly. We don't have time for rebellion. Her curls were having a good day, thankfully. She applied a light layer of makeup, nothing overdone, just enough to look awake and like she wasn't in emotional recovery. As she finished, she caught her reflection again. This time she paused. She didn't look like the woman who got fired yesterday. She looked hopeful, nervous, on the edge of something big. Her phone buzzed. A new message. Your driver has arrived. Sophia's heart thumped. This is it. This is actually it. She slipped on her shoes, grabbed her purse, double-checked that she wasn't forgetting anything, and inhaled deeply. Okay, girl, she whispered. Walk out there like you know what you're doing. She opened her door. A sleek black SUV waited outside her building, large, polished, and quietly intimidating. It looked like the kind of vehicle used in important situations, the kind that made neighbors peek through blinds. Sophia walked toward it slowly, clutching her purse to steady herself. Her footsteps softened as she approached the passenger door. It opened before she reached it. Out stepped Raymond, not a uniformed driver, not a government staffer. Raymond, tall, composed, dressed in a suit that fit him like it was tailored to his presence. His eyes were focused, steady, and absolutely purposeful as he looked at her. Sophia blinked. Hi, she said, her voice a mix of confusion and awe. Are you my driver? Raymond's lips curved slightly. Not a smile, but something close, something aware. Not exactly, he replied. I'm here to escort you. Escort me, Sophia echoed. As in, to the president? Me? Yes, he said, gentle but firm, to the president. And anywhere else required today. Sophia's heart fluttered for reasons that had nothing to do with politics. Oh, wow, okay then. I just wasn't expecting, she gestured vaguely at him. A whole you. He tilted his head with a subtle curiosity. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Depends, she said honestly. If this day gets any more shocking, I'm going to need snacks. That earned a soft exhale from him, a sound close to a quiet laugh, the kind he didn't give easily. I'll keep that in mind, he said. Sophia stepped closer, still trying to wrap her mind around the reality of this moment. So, you're the one taking me to the White House? Yes, Raymond replied. He opened the SUV door fully and motioned for her to enter. You'll be safe with me. Something about the way he said it made her chest tighten, not with fear but with an unfamiliar warmth, a steadiness, a reassurance she didn't expect from someone she had just met. Sophia held his gaze for a moment, feeling a spark she didn't want to acknowledge but couldn't deny. Then she slid into the SUV. Raymond took the seat beside her, not hiding the fact that he was watching her reaction carefully. Not in a controlling way, more like he needed to measure how she was handling the sudden shift in her world. Sophia inhaled slowly and said, Okay, deep breaths, we can do this. She turned toward him. Just one question. Yes? She pointed a finger lightly at his suit. Do people like you always look like you're stepping out of a security briefing? Because I feel very underdressed. For the first time, a genuine smile touched his mouth. Trust me, he said quietly. You're exactly where you're meant to be. The SUV pulled away from the curb as Sophia exhaled, her nerves and excitement mixing into something she had never felt before. Whatever this day held, she wasn't facing it alone. The SUV eased onto the main road, its interior filled with a quiet tension that wasn't uncomfortable, just charged. Sophia sat with her hands clasped together in her lap, trying to look calm even though her heart had not slowed since answering the president's call. The hum of the engine mixed with the faint click of the turn signal as Raymond adjusted the route. He didn't rush, he didn't glance around nervously. He moved with the confidence of someone who lived inside moments that required calm. Sophia finally exhaled and leaned back into the leather seat. Okay, so this is actually happening. I'm in a government vehicle, with a man who dresses like he walks out of classified meetings for breakfast, and I'm going to meet the president. Raymond glanced toward her, the edge of amusement flickering in his eyes. That is an accurate summary. She shot him a sideways look. You're very composed for someone who just picked up a woman mid-breakdown. I didn't see a breakdown, he replied. I saw someone adjusting quickly to an unexpected situation. Sophia blinked. Wow, are you always this flattering, or is today a special day? It's simply the truth. There it was again, that steadiness in his voice. He didn't speak to impress her. He didn't soften his words for effect. Everything he said felt deliberate, and for reasons she couldn't explain, it made her chest feel warm. She shifted slightly toward him. Okay, so, can I ask questions? Or are there rules, because I don't want to get hauled out of the car by the FBI, because I asked the wrong thing? A tiny smile touched his mouth. You can ask. I may not answer everything. Great, she said. A mystery escort. My life really turned into a movie overnight. Raymond paused before responding. Some matters are sensitive, but I'll tell you what I can. That answer did nothing to calm her curiosity. All right then, she said. Why me? Why all this sudden attention? I'm just someone who works in a federal office. Or, used to. His hands remained steady on the wheel. The Marine you helped wasn't just passing through. His presence there involved work that required absolute discretion. If he hadn't survived long enough to reach a controlled facility, the consequences would have been significant. Sophia's breath caught. So, I wasn't just helping a stranger. I stepped into something bigger? Yes. Should I be worried? Her voice wavered, not with fear, but with the weight of finally understanding the size of the moment she stumbled into. No, he said calmly. If you were in danger, you wouldn't be riding with me. You'd be somewhere much more secure. Comforting, she muttered. In a terrifying way. He allowed another small smile. You're safe. If anything changes, I'll handle it. Sophia looked at him, studying the line of his jaw, the calm focus in his eyes, the way he spoke like every word had been weighed before leaving his mouth. You really believe that? She said softly. Yes, he answered without hesitation. Silence settled between them, not awkward, not empty, just a quiet acknowledgement that she was sitting beside someone who took protection seriously. Sophia cleared her throat. Okay, one more question. Raymond nodded. Go ahead. Why are you the one escorting me? Surely there are people whose job title actually includes the word escort. His expression shifted slightly, still composed, but she caught a glimpse of something thoughtful, something that had nothing to do with orders. You've become part of a situation I'm responsible for evaluating, he said. Meeting you directly allows me to understand it better. She narrowed her eyes playfully. That's the official reason. He looked straight ahead again. Yes, and the unofficial reason? He hesitated. Sophia leaned slightly closer. Come on, don't act mysterious now. His voice dropped just a little. You acted with courage, and that matters more than you realize. I wanted to see the person behind that decision. Her cheeks warmed. She wasn't used to being spoken to like that, not dismissively, not condescendingly, but with genuine regard. She turned her gaze back to the window to hide her reaction. Okay, well, that's actually very sweet, she whispered. Raymond kept his eyes on the road. You may not see it yet, he said, but everything changed the moment you stepped toward that marine. Sophia's pulse quickened. Changed how? He didn't answer immediately. He let the city pass by. The monuments, the stone buildings, the fading morning haze settling over streets filled with commuters who had no idea of the life-altering conversation happening inside the SUV beside them. Finally, he said, You're connected to something now, something that moves beyond your old job, beyond yesterday, and the people who know what happened won't forget it. Sophia swallowed. Raymond, are you sure I should even be going to the White House? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I embarrass myself? What if— You won't, he interrupted gently. You have good instincts. You proved that already. The way he said it carried weight. Quiet reassurance, quiet admiration. The tension in her shoulders loosened. Thank you, she said softly. The SUV slowed as they approached a checkpoint. Raymond lifted his ID card without breaking focus. Just breathe, he said, turning toward her slightly. You're not walking into this alone. Sophia looked at him again, and this time, she didn't hide her reaction. Her world wasn't just changing. It was expanding, and he was part of the reason it didn't feel terrifying. As the gates to the White House slowly opened before them, she whispered, Okay, here we go. Raymond glanced at her with quiet certainty. Yes, he said, everything begins now. The SUV rolled slowly past the first checkpoint, and Sophia felt her breath catch as the imposing gates of the White House grounds came into full view. She had seen this place in movies, news broadcasts, and textbooks growing up, but seeing it from the inside of a government vehicle was an entirely different experience. The moment felt surreal, like she had stepped into a world she was never meant to access. Security personnel approached the SUV, checking credentials and matching clearances with quiet efficiency. Raymond handed over identification from the passenger seat. He didn't speak, didn't fidget, didn't show a hint of anxiety. He was in his element. Sophia, on the other hand, inhaled deeply and said under her breath, Okay, Lord, please don't let me trip on federal property. Raymond heard it. His lips curved slightly. You'll be fine. She wasn't convinced. The barrier lifted. The SUV pulled forward into the inner grounds, gliding past manicured lawns, stately trees, and a path that led toward one of the most recognizable buildings in the world. As they drove closer, the columns came into view, towering, grand, dignified. Sophia pressed her palm lightly against the door, her heart fluttering at the idea that in minutes she would be walking inside. When the vehicle came to a stop, Raymond turned to her. Take your time, I'm right beside you. She nodded, grateful for his presence. Her hands trembled slightly as she stepped out, the cool air hitting her face as her eyes widened at the sight before her. Wow, she whispered. I can't believe this is real. Raymond stood beside her, steady and composed. It is. A staff member approached them and gave a polite nod. This way, please. Sophia followed, her steps smaller than usual because her body was torn between awe and panic. The entry doors opened, revealing an interior she had only ever imagined. Polished floors, refined architecture, historical portraits adorning the walls, and a silence filled with meaning rather than emptiness. Everything smelled clean, expensive, and presidential. As they walked down a corridor, Raymond stayed a few feet behind her, not distant, but respectfully observant. Almost protective. Sophia felt it even without looking back. Her mind raced as she tried to maintain her composure. Don't trip, don't ramble, don't sweat too visibly. And Lord, please don't let my knees give out in front of important people. The staff member stopped before a door and opened it. Inside was a private office. Not overly ornate but elegant. Wooden desk, soft lighting, bookshelves, and a quiet gravity that made the space feel important. And standing beside the desk was the president. Sophia froze. This wasn't a televised version. This wasn't a distant image behind podiums and microphones. This was the real person, calm presence, thoughtful expression, and an aura that carried both authority and warmth. He stepped forward with a welcoming nod. Sophia, thank you for coming. Her throat tightened. Sir, thank you for inviting me. I still can't believe this is happening. He gestured for her to sit. Please, make yourself comfortable. She sat carefully, trying not to make any sudden or dramatic movements. Raymond took a position behind her to the right, close enough to signal he was part of this, but silent, reserved, blending into his role seamlessly. The president sat across from her. First, I want to acknowledge what you did yesterday. A Marine is alive because you acted quickly and selflessly. Sophia's eyes softened. I just did what anyone should do. He shook his head gently. Not everyone would have reacted as you did, and your actions mattered. Her chest tightened, this time from gratitude. For the first time since yesterday she felt seen, not as an employee who broke a rule, but as a person who made the right call. The president's expression shifted slightly. Still warm but more serious. What happened to you afterward was unacceptable. You were punished for demonstrating courage. Sophia lowered her gaze for a moment. It felt like everything fell apart because I tried to help. I know, he replied. And that's why I wanted to meet you. Not just to thank you, but to correct what never should have happened. She looked up again, surprised. Corrected how? He leaned forward, hands folded. We have a special civilian advisory program. It involves community insight, situational response assessment, and occasionally interacting with classified teams from a distance. It would offer you a new salary, new training, and the protection you need now. Sophia blinked. Protection? From what? He didn't give details, only held her gaze with a seriousness that told her the question wasn't small. Let's just say, the situation you stepped into yesterday was not random, and the people involved will want to ensure you're safe going forward. Her pulse accelerated. She looked instinctively over her shoulder toward Raymond. He met her eyes with a calm steadiness, as if silently confirming that everything being offered was real and necessary. Sophia turned back to the president. Sir, I'm honored, truly, but I don't know if I'm qualified for something like that. He smiled softly. You proved your qualification the moment you chose a life over a guideline. For a long, quiet moment, Sophia absorbed his words. She thought of the Marine's trembling hand on her wrist, of the termination letter, of the rain hitting her hair as she walked away from everything she knew. Then, with a breath that felt like the start of a new chapter, she said, Yes, I'll do it. The president nodded approvingly. Good. We'll begin preparations immediately. Sophia sat back, letting the reality settle over her. This wasn't just an apology. It was an opportunity, an unexpected road she never imagined she'd walk. As she gathered herself, her eyes drifted again toward Raymond. His expression remained composed, but something subtle warmed there, as if her decision mattered to him on a deeper level. Not professionally, not duty-bound, but personally, and she felt it too, a quiet spark, undeniable, immediate, something waiting to unfold. When the meeting with the president ended, the atmosphere in the room softened, shifting from official to quietly reflective. Sophia rose from her chair slowly, still absorbing the conversation, still stunned at how quickly her world had turned from disaster to possibility. Her legs felt oddly light, as if they weren't entirely convinced she could stand after everything she had just heard. Raymond stepped forward, opening the door for her with a calm gesture. Sophia offered a small thank you and walked past him, her steps careful, almost hesitant, not because she was unsure of the path, but because she felt like she was walking into a future she never saw coming. The hallway outside the office was quieter than before, emptier, dimmer, with soft lighting pooling across the floor. It felt like the world had paused for her, giving her a moment to breathe after a storm she didn't ask for but somehow survived. Raymond walked beside her, not speaking at first. His presence alone felt grounding, as though he understood she needed a moment before processing anything else. They passed a long row of framed photographs, leaders shaking hands, historical moments frozen in time, events stamped into the legacy of the building. Sophia glanced at them but barely registered what she was seeing. Her mind was still spinning. After several steps, she broke the silence. Did that really just happen? Please tell me I didn't imagine all of that. You didn't, Raymond replied, his voice steady. Every part of it was real. Sophia laughed lightly, though the sound came out sounding half-dazed. I feel like someone just lifted my life, shook it around, and dropped it in a completely different place. Raymond's gaze shifted toward her. Change happens that way sometimes. Sophia stopped walking and turned to face him. But why me? Out of everyone in that building yesterday, why did everything come down to me? Raymond didn't rush his answer. He looked at her with a seriousness that held no judgment, only clarity. Because you acted, he said quietly. Most people hesitate. You didn't. You stepped forward without thinking of consequences. That's rare. She held his gaze, unsure how to respond. The way he looked at her wasn't casual. It wasn't curiosity anymore. It was recognition, like he saw something in her she didn't know she had. Sophia lowered her eyes briefly, overwhelmed but grateful. I didn't want him to get hurt. That's exactly the kind of person who should be in the room today, he replied. A warmth spread through her chest, something soft, something unexpected. She swallowed gently. Thank you, Raymond. He nodded, but something lingered in his expression, something that hinted he had more to say. They resumed walking, but this time slower, side by side. Their footsteps echoed in a soft rhythm against the hallway floor. Sophia gathered her thoughts again. Okay. Honesty moment? I'm terrified. Raymond's brows lifted slightly. Of what? He paused before responding. You're capable of more than you realize, Sophia. Today proved that. She shifted her gaze to him again. You keep saying things that make me feel like I should believe in myself more. That's because you should. All of it, she admitted. New responsibilities, protection, decisions that matter. And being seen by people who actually make decisions. There was no hesitation in his tone. No wavering, just truth, direct and steady. Sophia felt a small flutter in her stomach. His confidence in her felt powerful, almost intimate, like he had already decided she wasn't someone to underestimate. As they reached another quiet corridor, Sophia slowed down again, her voice softer. Raymond, earlier, when you said you came personally because you wanted to understand the person behind the decision, was that the whole reason? He looked at her fully now. Not past her, not around her, directly at her. No, he said simply, her breath caught. Then, what was the rest of the reason? A faint tension formed in the air, not uncomfortable but charged, like something unspoken hanging between them. Raymond took a step toward her, not close enough to invade her space, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of his presence. I wanted to meet the woman who didn't hesitate to save someone, he said. The woman who didn't let fear stop her. The woman who stood in front of authority today and still stayed true to herself. Sophia felt her pulse quicken. His words wrapped around her, not in flattery but in sincerity. She didn't know what to do with that kind of acknowledgement. She exhaled slowly. Nobody's ever said anything like that to me before. They should have, Raymond replied. Something in her chest tightened, not painfully, but with a kind of emotional awakening she wasn't prepared for. She took a small step closer without meaning to, drawn to the stillness in his eyes, the certainty in his voice. And what about you? She asked quietly. Who are you outside of all this? Raymond's expression softened in a way she hadn't seen yet, less controlled, less guarded. I'm someone who spends a lot of time managing difficult situations, he said. Someone who's learned to stay distant because it's easier. Someone who didn't expect to meet anyone who challenged that. His voice grew gentler. But you did. Sophia's breath hitched. Her heart thudded loudly in her ears. She wasn't usually speechless, but right now words felt too small for the moment. A soft energy pulled them closer, not physically, but emotionally. The corridor felt warmer, the air thicker, the space between them alive with something neither of them named yet. Sophia whispered, Do you think this is a bad idea? Probably, he admitted, with the faintest hint of a smile. Yet you're still standing close. Yes, and you're not moving away. No. Why? His answer was low, honest, unprotected. Because I don't want to. Silence wrapped around them again, soft, magnetic, full of meaning. She could feel every heartbeat in her chest, every breath she took, every inch of space between them, carrying a truth they were only beginning to understand. Raymond straightened slightly, not breaking the connection but giving her room to breathe. His voice softened. We should get you home. Tomorrow, your new chapter begins. Sophia nodded, but her eyes stayed on him for a moment longer, a moment neither of them would forget. Sophia stood in front of the mirror the next morning, smoothing her blouse for what felt like the 100th time. Today wasn't just a work day. Today was her entry into a world she had not trained for, did not expect, and still barely understood. Yet there was no denying the quiet strength in her reflection. The woman staring back wasn't the same person who walked out of her old office with a cardboard box. She was different now, not because someone said she had value, but because someone finally recognized what had been there all along. A soft vibration buzzed across her counter. She picked up her phone to see a simple message. Your transport is waiting. Raymond. Her heartbeat quickened, not just from nerves but from the memory of last night's hallway moment. Quiet, charged, honest. She hadn't stopped thinking about it. About him. About the look in his eyes when he told her he didn't want to step away. Sophia grabbed her bag, locked her apartment, and stepped outside. A black SUV idled at the curb. Raymond stood beside it, hands behind his back, jacket perfectly in place, but there was something different in his posture, a softness at the edges, almost like he was glad to see her. Good morning, he said. Morning, she replied, trying not to sound as breathless as she felt. Ready for whatever this day is? You'll be fine, he said, opening the car door. And I'll be with you the entire time. Something warm settled into her chest at the certainty in his voice. They rode in silence at first, but it wasn't stiff. It was comfortable. Two people who had discovered a connection but didn't know what to do with it yet. When they reached the federal complex that housed her new assignment, Sophia's breath caught. This building wasn't imposing like her old workplace. It was modern, sleek, secured by multiple checkpoints. Raymond's badge alone granted them passage. Inside, the atmosphere carried a different kind of seriousness, one rooted in strategy, not routine. A staff member approached and nodded politely. Miss Sophia, welcome. We've prepared an orientation room. Sophia followed, her eyes absorbing everything. The conference rooms with digital screens, the offices with tinted glass, the quiet intensity of people moving with purpose. Inside the orientation room, she sat at a table as a briefing folder was placed in front of her. This is your new advisory assignment, the coordinator explained. You'll be participating in a civilian insight program. Your background gives you a unique perspective on how federal protocols impact real-world decisions. Sophia opened the folder. The words operational insight, community response, and civilian evaluation input stood out. So I'll be helping shape decisions? She asked. To an extent, the coordinator replied. Your instincts under pressure are valuable, and given recent events, your input is needed. Recent events. She didn't need to ask which ones. Another folder appeared, thinner, marked with a clearance sticker she hadn't seen before. This contains a summary of the classified elements you're cleared to know at this stage. Sophia swallowed. Classified? Already, yes. Your involvement with the Marine incident elevated your profile. You stepped into something, highly sensitive, that makes you both valuable and vulnerable. Sophia felt that word sink into her chest. Vulnerable. Before panic could surface, she noticed movement behind her. Raymond had entered the room. He stepped closer, placing a hand on the back of her chair, gentle, steady, protective. She won't be alone, he said, directing the statement toward the coordinator, but glancing briefly at Sophia. I've been assigned as her primary contact. Sophia turned sharply. Assigned, as in officially? Yes, he confirmed. If you need information, support, or security, you come to me. Her stomach dropped in a way that was both grounding and electrifying. She shouldn't have felt relief knowing he'd be around this often. But she did. Thank you, she murmured. Raymond's expression softened ever so slightly. It's my job, but more than that, it's important. The coordinator continued. You'll attend briefings, review scenarios, and provide civilian interpretations. You will not handle classified documents directly, but your feedback will influence operational decisions. So my role touches classified operations, she said slowly, letting the weight of it settle. Yes, the coordinator replied. Your instincts saved someone critical to a national-level operation. We need those instincts. Sophia leaned back, absorbing everything. She expected excitement, fear, disbelief, but what came instead was a quiet sense of purpose. For the first time, she wasn't just reacting to her circumstances, she was part of something. When the orientation finished, Sophia gathered her folders. Raymond stepped aside to let her pass, then walked beside her down the hallway. How do you feel? He asked. Overwhelmed, she admitted, but also weirdly ready. That's good. His tone dipped lower, more personal. Because from here on, the stakes increase. You're part of something that requires focus and trust. She stopped walking, turning toward him. Trust? In you? A silence hung between them, quiet but charged. Yes, he said. In me. She held his gaze. Then I do. Something flickered in his eyes, something that wasn't professional at all. Before either of them could speak again, a staff member approached and gestured for Sophia to follow them to her workspace. As she walked away, she felt Raymond's gaze lingering, protective, steady, and something more. Her new world had begun, and he was now firmly a part of it. Sophia spent most of the afternoon absorbing documents, listening to briefings, and trying to understand the true scope of her new role. The deeper she went, the more she realized this wasn't a ceremonial assignment. Every conversation, every scenario, every explanation carried weight. People here didn't waste words. They didn't sugarcoat. They didn't inflate importance. They told her the truth in measured fragments. And what she had wasn't a placeholder job, it was real responsibility. When the final briefing ended, the coordinator closed a folder and said, "We'll give you the rest of the day to settle in. You'll meet with your assigned contact shortly." Sophia nodded politely, though her heart raced with an unspoken certainty. Her assigned contact wasn't anyone. It was Raymond. As she stepped into the hallway, she saw him leaning against the glass wall near the elevators. His posture relaxed yet alert, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable, but when his eyes lifted toward her, something softened, almost like he had been waiting for her specifically. "Sophia," he said, pushing off the wall. "You said you'd be with me the entire time," she replied, walking toward him. "Did you mean forever, or just today?" His lips twitched. "Let's start with today." She exhaled a laugh, tension easing slightly. "Fair enough." Raymond motioned for her to follow him. "There's a room we can use, somewhere more private. You need to hear the rest, and it's not information they'll deliver in orientation." Sophia's steps slowed. "The rest? Yes." Something in his tone told her this wasn't optional, and it wasn't casual. He led her into a small conference room tucked at the end of the corridor. The lighting was soft, the blinds closed. The room felt insulated from the world outside. Raymond closed the door gently behind them. Sophia sat down, gripping her folder. "Okay, what else do I need to know?" Raymond walked around the table, choosing a seat across from her, close enough for sincerity, far enough to keep the conversation steady. He interlaced his fingers and took a slow breath before speaking. "The Marine you helped, his injury didn't happen by chance." Sophia felt a jolt of fear. "What do you mean?" "There was an internal breach," Raymond said. "Someone attempted to compromise a secure mission. He was targeted, not in the field, but inside a protected chain of movement." She inhaled sharply. "Inside? But isn't that a serious offense?" Raymond finished. "And dangerous." Sophia leaned back. "So the person who hurt him worked with him?" Raymond didn't answer immediately. His silence said enough. She pressed her hand against her forehead. "This is bigger than I thought. Much bigger. That's why the president wanted to speak with you directly. The person behind the sabotage doesn't know your name. Yet." The yet hit her like a cold gust of wind. Sophia's pulse quickened. "But how does this connect to me? I just tried to help someone." "You intervened at a moment when everything was at risk," Raymond said. "If the Marine had died in that lobby, we would have lost critical information tied to the breach." "Not physically," Raymond replied. "He knew things. Enough to identify the source of the infiltration." Her heart began pounding again. Harder. Raymond nodded slowly. "The truth would have died with him, and my decision to help him kept that from happening." Sophia covered her mouth with her hand. "I had no idea. You weren't expected to," Raymond said gently. "But your actions changed the entire course of an investigation." Sophia looked down at her trembling hands. "And my firing didn't just look cruel, it hid the situation." "Precisely," Raymond said. Removing you from the building helped downplay the incident while giving us time to assess the breach. Sophia blinked. So my humiliation was a cover? An unfortunate one, he admitted. But necessary at the time. A long silence stretched between them. The air grew heavy with truth and its consequences. Finally, she looked up. Raymond, am I in danger? He leaned forward just slightly, voice low and steady. Not alone. She swallowed. And if I'm not alone, then you're safer than you realize. Sophia held his gaze, sensing layers beneath his answer. Duty, protectiveness, something deeper, something unspoken. What happens now? She whispered. Now, he said, you understand why your role matters, why your presence here isn't symbolic, and why your safety is no longer something to take lightly. Sophia took a slow breath. Is that why you were assigned to me? Because I'm a risk? His jaw flexed. No, then, as if correcting himself internally, he added quietly. Because you matter to the situation, and someone needed to be responsible for you. Yes. His tone didn't waver, his eyes didn't shift. He meant every syllable. But you said earlier you wanted to understand who I was, she reminded him gently. I did, he replied, but after last night, and today, I'm not here only because of the job. Sophia's heart stilled. Raymond continued, voice softer now, almost vulnerable. I'm here because someone needs to make sure nothing happens to you, and I intend to be that person. The room felt warmer suddenly, closer, the space between them, charged. Sophia looked down at her hands, then back at him. This is a lot. I know, he said, but you're not facing it alone. She exhaled shakily. So there really is someone out there who caused all this? Yes, he confirmed, and your involvement exposed a mistake they didn't plan for. Sophia's voice lowered to a whisper. And now they know something slipped, yes, and that makes me a potential target, Raymond said, completing the thought she couldn't finish, which is why I'm here. And why I'm not going anywhere. Their eyes met again. Something deepened. Something shifted. Something formed quietly in the space between fear and trust. Sophia didn't speak. She didn't have to. Raymond's vow said everything. The day had drained Sophia more than she expected. By the time she arrived home, the sun was dipping lower, casting a late afternoon glow against her apartment windows. She closed the door behind her, leaned her back against it, and let out a long breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Her new world wasn't just intense. It was heavy, important, real, and now she knew the truth. Someone inside a protected chain had intentionally targeted a Marine. Someone wasn't finished, and someone might see her as a problem. Sophia rubbed her palms along her jeans, trying to settle the lingering tension. Okay, girl, breathe, she whispered, pacing across her living room. Don't spiral. Don't freak out. You're safe. Raymond said so. But the echo of potential target replayed in her mind like an unwanted reminder. She walked to the kitchen to make tea, hoping the warmth would settle her nerves. She'd just turned on the kettle when something outside caught her eye, a faint movement near the edge of her window. She froze. At first, she thought it might be a neighbor, someone taking a walk, someone unloading groceries. But the figure didn't move naturally, didn't walk, didn't shift. It lingered, still, watching. Sophia stepped back from the window slowly, her heartbeat beginning to race. She tried to reason with herself. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe she was imagining things because of everything she'd learned today. But instinct, the same instinct that made her run to the Marine, whispered otherwise. With trembling hands, she reached for her phone and typed a quick message. I think someone is outside my building. Her thumb barely lifted before the screen lit up. Raymond, stay away from the windows. I'm on my way. Don't open your door. Don't speak to anyone. I'm almost there. Sophia's breath hitched. She stepped back into the center of her apartment, gripping her phone, her pulse thundering in her ears. There was only silence, the kind of silence that made every small noise sound suspicious. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint tick of the clock, the soft thud of her heartbeat. Then, a faint shuffle. Outside, near her door. Sophia covered her mouth with her hand to keep from gasping. She backed toward the hallway, every muscle tense. Her phone buzzed again. Raymond, I'm 2 minutes away. Stay where you are. She moved carefully, quietly, retreating into her bedroom, where she felt slightly more concealed. The air felt tighter in here, the walls closer, her breathing shallow. Then she heard it, a soft tap, not from inside, not from the hallway, from outside her door. A cautious testing sound, Not loud enough to draw neighbors, not aggressive enough to force entry, but deliberate. Sophia clutched her phone tighter. Her hands trembled, but she didn't cry. Fear tried to choke her, but something sturdier rose in her chest. Resolve. She didn't know where it came from, but it burned through the panic, reminding her that she had faced shock before and survived. Her phone buzzed again. "Raymond, I'm here. Don't move." Her breath left her body in a shaky exhale. Seconds later she heard footsteps outside, firmer, faster, confident. Not the same as before. Then a voice, low, commanding. "Raymond, step away from the door." The tone cut through the silence like steel, firm, unyielding, protective. Sophia pressed closer to the wall, hands gripping her phone. The next moment unfolded so fast she couldn't process it. A sharp movement, a thud, a muffled sound, someone stumbling away. Then Raymond's voice again, unmistakably sharper. "Leave. Now." Silence followed, then fading footsteps, retreating fast. Sophia didn't realize she had been holding her breath until her chest began to ache. Moments later, a knock, firm, controlled, familiar. "Sophia, it's me." Her legs wobbled as she opened her bedroom door and approached the front. When she cracked it open, she saw him standing there, jaw tight, eyes scanning every corner of her hallway, breath steady but layered with tension. He stepped inside, immediately closing the door behind him and locking it. Only then did he turn to her. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice low but edged with something fierce. Sophia nodded, though her voice trembled. I think so. Someone was out there, I know." His expression hardened. "I saw him." She swallowed. Did he try anything?" "He didn't get the chance." Raymond stepped closer, lowering his voice even more. "But he wasn't a neighbor. And he wasn't lost." Sophia's breath caught. "So, it was real, yes. Because of the Marine? Yes." The truth landed heavily between them. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop the shiver that ran through her. Raymond closed the distance slowly, not abruptly, not forcefully, but with the kind of controlled movement that spoke volumes about how carefully he handled anything involving her. He lifted a hand, hesitating for the smallest moment, then placed it gently on her shoulder. "You're safe," he said. "As long as I'm here, nothing touches you." Nothing. His words should have terrified her, because they meant the danger was real. Instead, they steadied her, grounded her. "Raymond," she whispered, voice breaking slightly. "I didn't think this would happen so fast." "I know," he said softly. "I hoped you wouldn't have to face it, not yet." She looked up at him, seeing something crack through his controlled exterior. Worry. Not professional concern. Personal. Her breath softened. "Were you scared?" she asked quietly. He held her gaze. "Only for you." Something in her chest tightened, so suddenly, it almost hurt. Raymond stepped even closer, his hand sliding from her shoulder to her upper arm in a slow, reassuring gesture. "Sophia, this is bigger than I wanted it to be, but I'm not leaving you alone in it. Not for 1 second. A warmth pulled her toward him. Not romantic yet, but undeniably emotional, undeniably human. The kind of connection born from shared danger and unexpected trust. Sophia exhaled shakily. "What happens now?" He glanced toward the door, then back at her. That was a warning. Sophia's heart pounded once. "Hard." Raymond continued, voice steady but solemn. "And it means the real threat is closer than we thought." The morning after the incident at her apartment, Sophia walked into the secure building with a different posture. Straighter, steadier, more aware of the shadows she used to overlook. Yesterday, she was overwhelmed. Today, she felt ready. Raymond walked beside her, not saying much, but the tension in his jaw, the way he kept scanning corners, the subtle shift in his breathing, Sophia could tell he hadn't slept much. Not because of work, because someone tried to frighten her. As they reached the elevator, he pressed the button and finally spoke. "There's new intel." Sophia's stomach tightened. "About last night?" "About everything," Raymond said. "And you need to hear it before the rest of the building gets involved." When the elevator doors closed, the world seemed to shrink into a private space where truth had no place to hide. Raymond turned to face her fully. "The internal breach we suspected? It's confirmed. Someone inside our agency caused the Marine's injury." Sophia's breath caught. "So it really was sabotage?" "Yes," he answered. "And not random. The Marine was carrying information that could expose the culprit. The attack was meant to silence him before he reported what he knew." Sophia pressed a hand to her forehead. "And because I stepped in, you disrupted their plan. Raymond said, "and now that same person wants you silenced, because your involvement created a trail." Sophia's voice dipped. "A trail leading to them, exactly." The elevator stopped. Raymond guided her into a private conference room, locking the door behind them. For the first time since she'd known him, he didn't try to stay calm for her sake. His eyes held something sharper, anger buried beneath control. He placed a file on the table. "This came in early this morning. Surveillance analysis, internal movement logs, a pattern of unusual clearance requests." Sophia didn't sit. She couldn't. She watched his face instead. "What does it mean?" she asked. "It means the person we're dealing with is close," Raymond said. "Too close." Sophia shivered. "Do you know who it is?" "Not yet," he said carefully. "But the circle is small." Silence filled the room. Heavy, pressurized. Sophia forced herself to speak. "Raymond, what happens now? I don't want to hide. I don't want to run." "You're not running," he said, stepping closer. "We're confronting this. Together." The word "together" hit her harder than she expected. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't casual. It was a vow made in a moment where danger pressed in but courage pushed back. Sophia stepped closer, mirroring him. "Tell me what I can do." Raymond hesitated, not because he doubted her, but because he was weighing the risk. "If you want to help," he said, "you stay close to me, you pay attention, and you trust me even when things move fast." Sophia met his eyes. "I already do." He inhaled slowly, something shifting in his expression. She could feel it, the unspoken pull between them, sharpened by fear, strengthened by choice. He lifted the file again. "There's more. Internal logs show that someone accessed classified records about you within 30 minutes of the Marine being admitted to the hospital." Sophia's heart dropped. "They looked me up that fast?" "Yes. Why?" "To see who interfered." His voice deepened. "To see who ruined their plan." Sophia took a shaky breath. "So last night, the person outside my building was sent to test access routes," Raymond said, "or to scare you, but not to hurt you, not yet. They were probing, assessing how close they could get." Sophia felt a cold wave run down her arms. "And now?" "Now they know you're not alone," Raymond said. "They know someone is watching over you." Her voice softened. Yes," he answered without hesitation. Sophia's eyes warmed as she looked at him. "You keep saying you're responsible for me, but it feels like it's more than just responsibility." Raymond didn't step back. He didn't look away. He held her gaze with a focus that felt like gravity. "It is," he said quietly. Sophia's chest tightened. "Raymond." Before anything else could be said, the door beeped, an alert from the internal system. Raymond's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen, and his expression sharpened instantly. "We have movement," he said. "Someone just accessed restricted files connected to the Marine's chain. That means our suspect is active today." Sophia straightened. "Then we find them. You and I," Raymond agreed. He reached out, not grabbing her but guiding her with a gentle touch to her back. "Stay close. Don't speak unless I signal. And don't leave my sight." Sophia nodded, adrenaline replacing fear. "Let's go." They stepped into the hallway as a united front, no longer a protector and civilian, but partners bound by necessity, trust, and something neither of them dared name yet. As they moved through the corridor, Raymond glanced sideways at her, his voice low. "Just so we're clear, if anything happens today, I will shield you first." Sophia swallowed. "Why? Why do you care that much?" He didn't hesitate. "Because somewhere between yesterday and now, you became someone I can't lose." Her breath caught, a sharp emotional hit she didn't see coming. The alarm light flashed over the hallway, a signal, a warning, a call to action. Raymond stepped forward, eyes fierce. "Stay with me." And together, they walked toward the truth waiting at the end of the hall. The corridor pulsed with tension as Raymond led Sophia deeper into the secured wing of the building. Every light overhead felt brighter, every shadow sharper, every step louder. It wasn't fear anymore, it was anticipation, tightened and electrified by the promise of answers. Raymond scanned his badge at a reinforced door. It slid open with a heavy click, revealing a dim private briefing room. Inside, a single tablet sat on the table, its screen already glowing. "Someone sent this directly to my system," Raymond said, picking it up. "Encrypted. High priority." Sophia frowned. "Sent to you? Not the entire team?" "That's what makes it unusual." He tapped the screen. A video file opened. A timestamp appeared in the corner, recorded the day of the Marine's collapse. Sophia's breath caught. The screen flickered. before revealing a hospital room. Medical machines beeped quietly in the background. The Marine lay on the bed, pale but conscious, oxygen tubes secured across his face. He looked exhausted, barely able to keep his eyes open, but determined. Sophia stepped closer, her pulse pounding. The Marine raised a weak hand toward the camera. His voice trembled, but the words were clear. "If she's seeing this, it means she saved me." Sophia's hand flew to her chest. The Marine continued, eyes opening just long enough to focus. Tell Sophia." The moment she grabbed my wrist, that pressure point, she kept my heart from stopping. She bought me time. Sophia blinked rapidly, overwhelmed. "I didn't. I just held him." Raymond touched her arm gently, grounding her. "You stabilized him. That's why he survived long enough to speak." The Marine coughed, struggling through pain. "They'll try to hide this. They'll say she interfered. But she's the reason I'm alive. I need her to know that." Sophia's breath trembled. "I had no idea." The Marine looked towards someone off-screen. "Is it recording? Good." He faced the camera again. "There's something she needs to decode. Something only she would notice. Something from the lobby." Raymond's brows tightened. "Decode?" Sophia's heart raced. "From the lobby, but I didn't see." The Marine raised a shaking finger. "My hand. When I grabbed her wrist, I drew something. A pattern. Quick, small. I knew I wouldn't stay conscious. I needed to leave a message." Sophia staggered back a half step. A memory slammed into her chest, his fingers brushing against her wrist, the warmth of his palm, a faint movement she thought was just reflex. "Oh my God," she whispered. He squeezed my wrist on purpose." The Marine continued. "She'll remember the pressure, the sequence, 3 taps, pause, 2 taps, slide." Sophia's mouth parted in shock. She remembered, vividly. She had thought he was trying to hold on, but he wasn't holding, he was telling. Raymond leaned in. "Sophia, what did it feel like? Think carefully." She closed her eyes, replayed the moment. The Marine had tapped her wrist, 3 sharp pulses, then a pause, then 2 softer taps. Finally his fingers had slid toward her palm. Sophia inhaled sharply. "It was a signal. A signal for what?" Raymond pressed. "A drawer code. In my old building." Her eyes flew open. 3 taps is authorization. 2 taps confirms. Slide means manual override. Raymond's expression sharpened with realization. "So he wanted you to open something." "Yes," she said, adrenaline spiking. "A secured storage drawer. There were hundreds of them around the lobby, but only certain ones used that sequence." Raymond set the tablet down slowly. "Sophia, that means he hid evidence before collapsing." Her pulse thundered. "And he left the code on me. That's why your firing happened so quickly," Raymond said. "It wasn't punishment. It wasn't protocol enforcement. It was a cover to get you out of the building before you noticed which drawer responded to that sequence." Sophia swallowed hard. "Someone didn't want me near that clue." "Yes," Raymond whispered. "Your firing wasn't personal. It was strategic." She sank into the nearest chair, her mind spinning. "I was never supposed to know the Marine tried to tell me something, but I did feel it. I remember thinking it was strange, but then everything happened so fast and—" Raymond knelt beside her, steady and solid. "Sophia, look at me." She did. "You didn't fail to notice anything. You were overwhelmed, and that was intentional. They wanted the signal lost in the chaos. And the culprit knows you might remember," Raymond said. "That's why they showed up at your apartment." Sophia's chest tightened. "So what do we do now?" "We go back," he said, "to your old building. We open that drawer." Her breath caught. "But won't that draw attention?" "It will," Raymond said, standing again. "But there's no avoiding this. The Marine left a message only you could recover. We honor that." Sophia nodded slowly. "Then we do it." But before they could move, the tablet chimed again. Another message. A short one. "Incoming update, the Marine is awake. Requesting Sophia. Urgent." Sophia's heart leapt. "He's awake? He wants to see me?" "Yes," Raymond said. "He must know something. Something new." But something else flickered across his expression. A brief vulnerability, subtle but unmistakable. Something he hadn't meant to reveal. Sophia stepped closer. "Raymond, are you okay?" "I'm fine," he said quietly. But she touched his arm gently. "You look worried." His jaw flexed. "Because every step forward brings you deeper into this. And He paused, searching for the right words. "I don't want anything to happen to you." The air thickened instantly, emotions rising too fast, a truth forming between them. Raymond lowered his voice. "Last night, When I said I couldn't lose you. Sophia's breath shook. I remember. He moved a fraction closer. Today didn't change that, he whispered. It made it stronger. Her pulse raced. Raymond. Their faces were inches apart. The room felt warm, charged, magnetic. Then, beep. An alert blasted through the intercom. Raymond, respond. Urgent development in the case. Priority 1. Now. Raymond closed his eyes briefly, steadying his breath. Sophia stepped back slightly, her chest rising and falling. The moment hovered between them, suspended, unfinished, undeniable. Raymond opened his eyes. We have to go, he said softly. Sophia nodded. Together? Always. The urgency in the intercom shifted the atmosphere instantly. Raymond stepped into the hallway with Sophia close behind him, both moving with purpose. The air felt charged, as though the entire building sensed something decisive was about to unfold. They reached the operations room, where 2 analysts stood over a live feed monitor. One of them looked up as Raymond entered. We found the breach source, the analyst said. Access logs pinged again. Same clearance level. Same timing pattern. Location? Raymond asked. Sub-level 3. Storage wing. Sophia's pulse spiked. That's near the area with the drawers, the one the Marine coded for me. Raymond turned to her. Exactly. And whoever we're dealing with is trying to get ahead of us. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed an access badge from the table and motioned for her to follow. They took the back stairwell, descending quickly through the narrow corridors that connected the building's secured levels. The deeper they went, the colder the air felt. As they reached sub-level 3, Raymond slowed, positioning himself slightly in front of Sophia. Stay behind me. No matter what. She nodded, adrenaline tightening her chest. They stepped into the storage wing. The lights hummed faintly overhead, reflections bouncing off the metallic drawers that lined the walls. It felt eerily quiet, as if the space itself was holding its breath. Raymond scanned the rows until Sophia whispered, There. The drawer she pointed to matched the exact sequence she remembered. 3 tap authorization, 2 tap confirmation, manual override. And it was already open. Raymond's jaw clenched. Someone got here before us, but the clue wasn't gone. Inside the drawer sat a compact data drive, small, metallic, and unmistakably important. Raymond reached for it just as a voice echoed from the far end of the room. Step away from that. Sophia stiffened. From behind one of the metal cabinets stepped a man, a face Sophia recognized instantly. Her former supervisor, the same one who fired her, the same one who scolded her for helping the Marine, the same one who escorted her out of the building. He wasn't supposed to be here. Raymond didn't lower his guard. You accessed restricted files this morning. You're the one who injured the Marine. The man's eyes flickered. He was never supposed to survive. And the woman who saved him? Raymond added coldly. Sophia's supervisor shrugged. Collateral. She should have stayed out of it. Sophia's breath shook, not from fear, but from the shocking clarity of the truth. You fired me to hide it, she whispered. You weren't protecting protocol. You were protecting yourself. His expression hardened with irritation. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Raymond stepped forward, voice a dangerous calm. She was exactly where she needed to be, and now it's over. The supervisor pulled a small device from his pocket, an attempt to destroy the drive. Raymond moved instantly. Sophia didn't even see the full motion, just the swift displacement of air as Raymond closed the distance, disarming the device and pinning the supervisor against the cabinet with a controlled, efficient force that came from years of training. You're done, Raymond said sharply. Security officers rushed in moments later, taking the supervisor into custody. The room's tension released like a snapped wire. Sophia exhaled shakily. So, that's it? He was behind everything? Raymond turned toward her, holding the recovered drive. His access logs matched the breach. He sabotaged the Marine, and he tried to eliminate the evidence. You were never the problem, Sophia. You were the threat. She blinked hard, absorbing the truth. And my firing, he used it as cover. Yes, Raymond said, and it almost worked. Sophia lowered her head, feeling a complicated swirl of anger, relief, and vindication. I knew something felt wrong that day, but I thought, maybe I was imagining it. You weren't, Raymond said. Your instincts were right from the start. Hearing that mattered more than she expected. Sophia stood beside the president as he addressed a small, select group of staff. The Marine had recovered enough to give full testimony. The evidence from the storage drawer tied everything together, and the culprit's actions were now documented at the highest level. The president turned toward Sophia. This country owes you more than gratitude. You acted when it mattered most, and your courage prevented a serious breach from succeeding. Today, we acknowledge that publicly. Sophia felt her throat tighten. Thank you, sir. Raymond stood nearby, expression calm but proud. She caught his gaze briefly, long enough to feel something warm settle in her chest. After the briefing, the president nodded to her again. Your new assignment will continue, Sophia. We need people like you. When Sophia exited the room, Raymond was waiting. Not as her protector, not as her assigned contact, but as someone whose presence now meant something deeper. You did well, he said softly. Sophia laughed lightly. I almost fainted. No, he said. You stood your ground, you always do. They walked down the hallway together, quieter now, the rush of the day settling behind them. When they reached a quieter corner, Sophia stopped. Raymond, thank you. For everything. For last night. For today. For not letting me face this alone. His expression shifted, something tender unfolding beneath the hard lines of his face. You weren't alone, he said. You won't be. She stepped closer, unsure if the moment would hold or fade. Earlier, she whispered, before the alert interrupted us. You were going to say something. He exhaled slowly, emotion warming his voice. I was. Sophia's voice softened. Do you still want to say it? Raymond reached out, gently brushing a stray curl from her cheek. The touch was careful, reverent, as if he'd been waiting for permission to finally feel something openly. Yes, he said, because today reminded me exactly why I can't ignore it. Sophia's breath caught. Raymond. He stepped closer. This began as protection, he said quietly. But somewhere along the way, it became more. You became more. Sophia's heart swelled, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel it too. The moment stretched, intimate, magnetic, full of answers neither had spoken before. Raymond's forehead gently touched hers, a gesture full of promise and clarity, not rushed or uncertain. Sophia, he murmured, whatever comes next, we face it together. Her eyes softened. Together. Then, as if the world shifted around them, a sense of peace washed over her. Not safety she borrowed, but safety she shared. Sometimes destiny fires you just to redirect you. Sometimes chaos reveals your purpose. And sometimes love arrives disguised as protection. Her life hadn't fallen apart. It had fallen into place.